Welcome back to another week of Behind the Lens. I'm Debbie Elias, film critic, creator, and host of Behind the Lens, where we go behind the lens and below the line with those movers and shakers, the film and TV makers, the producers, directors, writers, actors, cinematographers, production designers, costume designers, film editors, sound mixers, VFX gurus, composers, stunt coordinators, you name it, and we're talking to them. And this week, we're doing some more talking, and we're going a bit dark this week, thanks to writer-director Jeremy Rudd and his directorial feature debut with Diced Reloaded, and that is spelled Die, D-I-E, apostrophe C-E-D. So a nice little play on word, tongue-in-cheek there. Plus, the fabulous veteran director, one of my favorites, Chuck Russell. And he'll be talking about his latest dive back into the darkness with WITCHBOARD. But let's kick things off with Jeremy Rudd and his feature debut, Diced Reloaded, which follows the story of Benny, an infamous serial killer who escapes a high-security asylum on Halloween night, turning 1980s, 90s Seattle into a blood-soaked nightmare. Reborn behind a twisted scarecrow mask, he leaves a trail of carnage across the suburbs as whispers of his gruesome past resurface, fueling panic in a city soaked in neon and fear. But Benny isn't just killing for pleasure. He's hunting a specific someone. A young woman unknowingly tied to the darkest chapter of his madness becomes his fixation, and the closer he gets, the bloodier it gets. The result is a brutal, synth-drenched scarecrow slasher soaked in nostalgia, where Benny carves his place in horror history one body at a time. What makes Diced Reloaded interesting from a storytelling and production standpoint is that this began as a short film, conceived by Jeremy during the pandemic and inspired by slasher movies of the 80s and 90s. With the idea of a film that would pay homage to those bloody slasher classics, Jeremy developed the scarecrow-like villain of Benny, and blending elements of those classics with his own ideas, Diced was born. Garnering a cult following thanks to it being a viral online hit in 2023, Jeremy then took the next step and expanded his short film of Diced into Diced Reloaded, taking a deeper dive into this new franchise villain of Benny. Written and directed by Jeremy Rudd, Diced Reloaded stars Eden Campbell, Jason Brooks, who is fantastic as the nimble and non-verbal Benny. Also Nigel Vana and others pop up in here. In speaking with Jeremy in this exclusive interview, we highlight the film's creative elements, including the opening title design and the use of red, black, and white. It's not often we get to talk about the title design with a filmmaker, so that's a treat. And speaking of title design, stay tuned. Coming up in a few weeks is going to be a conversation with a title designer. But I digress. We also talk about him working with cinematographer Tyler Jones and discussing the visual grammar and the lighting design, which gives way to some very cool visual metaphors. Also, the challenges of extending the film an additional 40 minutes or so to turn the short into a feature. That is not as easy as one might think. And you're going to hear Jeremy talk about that. Initially, Jeremy handled all aspects of editing, color grading, and sound design himself, learning as he went. And he has some interesting things to say about that learning curve, including the film's pacing, minimal dialogue, and the gory kills. Is there such a thing as too much? And one of the biggest highlights of the film, which we do talk about, beyond Jason Brooks' incredible performance as Benny, is the film's score and needle drops, all of which I want to have on a soundtrack. So, take a listen as writer-director Jeremy Rudd discusses Diced Reloaded. Hi, Jeremy.
Hello, how are you?
Very fine. How are you today?
Doing pretty good.
Well, I gotta wonder what goes on in that creative little mind of yours to turn out a film like Dice Reloaded. I could not stop watching it, number one. You've got a lot of creative things happening here. You've got your opening titles are wonderful. With the using the red, black, and white, and the more graphic design to them. Very eye-catching, and it really sets the tone for the film after we've had a great opening scene lead-in before we get to those. But then watching this story unfold, you've got quite a few surprises here for us that are not expected. So I have to ask, where did this come from? Did you wake up at breakfast one morning and think, a scarecrow slasher who's really sick and twisted? Yeah, that is good breakfast food, actually. You know, that's something great to come up with. So give me the backstory here.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Thank you for the kind words, and I'm glad you enjoyed the film. But the backstory behind it was, during the pandemic, 2020, everything was shut down and closed, so I was forced to kind of have a lot of free time. So I was watching. I like older movies because I like the older slasher movies, and there wasn't really that many newer ones like that. So I was like, I kind of I had a lot of free time. I was like, okay, I guess I can. I kind of want to write a script of my own, so I started writing my own script, and I wanted to have the kind of pay homage to the older 80s, 90s slasher films. So that's what was my whole inspiration. And then also the inspiration behind Benny the Scarecrow was I remember really used to love a film called Jeepers Creepers growing up, and that villain was like he looked to me to be a scarecrow, but I found out later he wasn't. So I wanted to kind of have a scarecrow villain, also because I also felt like that was an underutilized villain in the horror space.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't that many of those, so I used that, and then started writing the film, and then kind of doing some older stuff, some newer stuff, and then kind of had to mix my own of it, and then got it shot in Seattle, and then. It was like a 45-minute, 50-minute film. It was really short. And then Epic Pictures, saw the film and reached out to me, and they wanted to, reached out to me about extending it, and then, kind of doing everything, kind of polishing everything up, remixing, remastering everything. And I was totally on board for that. And then, long story short, now I see the film, and I'm really, I really love what they did with it. It's a much better watch from beginning to end now.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I think it's a really fun watch from beginning to end, and I like the extremes that you go to. I mean, number one, the film moves at a clip, very well cut in with your pacing. So, I mean, it just moves. It's quite interesting. It is very needle drop heavy. There is not a lot of dialogue in this film. It is very observational with montages that are taking us through sequences rather than wasting time with exposition. Now, in the third act, we get a scene with plenty of exposition that fills us in on everything. It's very bloody. The kills, though, you push the envelope. So there's a surreal nature to them that makes them gory, and you don't really see, move the camera in for any real ECUs on the actual kills, but for a few times we really see body parts flying or blood spurting, and I just think that is so effective here. And the fact that Benny never gets any blood on his overalls, that is the really amazing part here. So you really, expanding upon your original short, you do a really nice job at filling this in and bringing it up to a feature-length film. So and a lot of what carries us through is Jason Brooks' performance as Benny. And when we see him almost, a hop, skip, and a jump, moving from, on to a potential victim, you have to laugh. So you give us a little bit of everything here. And I'm curious how challenging that was for you from a directorial, from a visual standpoint, to incorporate all of that without going into overkill and while still giving us some humorous notes.
Yeah, I mean, it was a little bit challenging, but I just wanted to make sure the action was there. I wanted to I didn't want it to be boring, kind of a boring watch. I wanted to make sure people were engaged the whole time, so I put in a lot of action and a lot of chase scenes and a lot of kill scenes to make sure there wasn't and plus our villain doesn't really, he doesn't talk, so that kind of cut. That's kind of the reason why the dialogue was kind of cut short, because the villain doesn't talk. Mm-hmm. But also just wanted to have a lot of the action and kill scenes where I feel like people really kind of gravitate towards horror films about. So that's kind of the whole overall reason. But definitely, I feel like in part 2, I'll definitely want to keep the action, the kills, and then also I kind of want to dive a little more into our final girl and give more of a backstory on her, and then also, of course, touch in a little more areas with Benny as well.
Oh, absolutely. You can go so far with this character of Benny, and with the way that you conclude this particular chapter in his life. And I want to see more. We had the reference to his treatment as a child by his step-parents and cutting his tongue out and gross things like that. But I want that expanded on. I would love to see more of that to give us even greater context. Because as you mentioned, there haven't been too many scarecrow characters in horror films. So this is a refreshing aspect to bring to the genre. Now, how did you pick 1998 as your decade? The original, we had crimes happen in 1987. Now it's 11 years later. How did you select that era to set this tale?
I just selected that era because that's when I started watching a lot of the horror films. I mean, for horror films in that era. A lot of the first Friday the 13th, a lot of the first Halloweens, and then there's really like Child's Play growing up, and a lot of those films were filmed in the 80s. So that's why I picked that year, and then I just wanted to kind of pay homage towards those films, so that's why I picked that year.
Well, I have to say, again, it was quite refreshing to see 1998 and the way you have depicted it. You really hearken it back almost to like a 1950s, Leave It to Beaver, with Dad and his son and his daughter, and you've still got a landline that they're calling on. In multiple places, we're using landline phones. God bless them. The high school kids, they all look normal. Chris, he's got a little bit of a 1950s or Fonzie kind of bent to him. So it's really nice. Kids are still trick-or-treating safely. Their parent is with them. It's very nostalgic in that respect, and it really works well, Jeremy. You really pull it off and pull in that time period for us, which I appreciate. Now, I've got to ask you about working with your DP, working with Tyler Jones. You have some nice camera work, nice flow. You've got really nice lighting, especially in the third act. You've got a warehouse scene. You have a visual metaphor with the lighting. You've got red, green, and yellow lighting happening. In that third act, we've got, stop, go, caution. Obviously, that was deliberate on the part of you and Tyler to have that. So talk to me about working with Tyler and developing the visual grammar here.
Yeah, Tyler's a rock star. He was very professional. He helped out a ton on set because he knew this was my first time directing. So he had a lot of input and a lot of recommendations on things, and a lot of it made sense, and it kind of was, it was in alignment with what I was hoping for those specific scenes. So and then he had the lighting crew. He was already good friends with. He knew the sound crew, so he kind of pieced everyone together. And then, he had a lot of experience on his own as well. So yeah, definitely highly recommend him. He was really good, to work with, especially, me being the first time doing this. And I learned a lot as I was shooting that film, from the first day to the last day, and it just got better from there. But his lighting was on point. He gave me a lot of visuals to kind of, before we started shooting, he was like, okay, let's do this type of lighting here, or we have this options. He was giving me a bunch of different options and like a lookbook, and then I was like, yeah, let's go with this one. I really like this and this, So ultimately, it was definitely great to work with, and he had a lot of good ideas and a lot of things that fit and aligned with what I was looking for.
Yeah, I really like the lighting, and I like how he makes great use of negative space, but not overkill. So we do have some scenes where suddenly Benny appears, but in the majority of cases, it's because he's come through. Your film could be a cautionary tale to people. Lock your front door, lock your sliding glass doors, take a few security measures here. But I really like how the lighting plays into this, especially the deeper we get into the film. Actually, the opening in the Psychiatric Institute and then the third act is beautifully bookended from a lighting standpoint. So it feels full circle.
Yeah, those were different. So basically, Tyler did everything. Tyler was the DP for everything except for the first 20 minutes. The first 20 minutes was done by someone else, but they had very similar styles, and with the lighting and how they were like kind of being the DP on that. But yeah, my hats off for those guys. They did an amazing job.
Yeah, and the way you have it cut together, so we do have that full circle in terms of the look, bookending this. How challenging was the edit on this? Because you had the short, you built on the 50-minute short, added another 30 minutes or so to take this up to 85 minutes or 15 minutes more. How challenging was the edit on this, putting it together, and how did your music impact the editing?
Yeah, that was a great question. The editing was very hard, or challenging at first, because I just learned everything from like YouTube videos or just kind of looking things up as I went. And then, because this is my first time editing a film, doing the color grade, doing all the sound design, so I did all of it on my own. But Epic was able to go in and repolish everything, remix everything, remaster everything, and then they did all the editing and everything for the first 30 minutes, and then they kind of went through all of everything that I did and kind of put everything together and kind of make everything kind of flow and look a lot better, a lot cleaner.
Yeah, because as I said, this moves at a clip. Nothing languishes, which is really nice. You build tension, but you don't stagnate. So that works really, really well. And because the music is so important here, what were you looking for musically? And how did you stumble upon, I know quite a bit of the music is from Nightwolf. So I'm curious about what you were looking for from a musical perspective.
I just wanted to, whatever felt like the 80s, whatever. I just wanted to overall bring people back to that decade and kind of have people have that nostalgia feeling and when they're watching the film. Because, a lot of people that are, grew up watching that stuff are all adults now. So I feel like a lot of those people would kind of want to touch back on what they used to watch as kids or growing up. So I just wanted to bring that overall feeling back into this film. So that's why the music took took into play, the dialogue, the scene decor. I even put a little, when I was editing the film, I put a little like grit over the lay of the film, so it looks a little grittier.
Mm-hmm.
So, all that stuff was done on purpose.
Well, I have to say, I love the music in this film so much that you could even put out a soundtrack if you get all of your artists to agree to it. Because the music in the film really is, it captures the era, and you've actually got some stuff there that it's fun to listen to.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I agree. I thought we did a good job at, kind of picking out the music and the tone and the feel that we were looking for. So thank you for noticing that.
So now that you have Diced Reloaded under your belt, feature film, your first directorial, what did you learn about yourself as a filmmaker in making this one that you can take forward into future films and most definitely into a sequel?
Yeah, I haven't really tapped into what I like as a filmmaker, because this first round was just a lot of learning. The first one was a lot of learning. I learned a ton. I feel like things got a lot better as I was, coming towards the midway point, all the way to the end. So this first one was just ton of learning, what I like, what I don't like, and then, just because you learn a ton from, your first time shooting it, and then you're the person editing it as well. So when I was editing, I was like, oh man, I should have went and shot this angle, or did this different, did this thing different. So this first one was definitely a lot of learning, and then I'm gonna definitely apply those learnings to the second one to kind of really hone in on what I really like as a director, and what kind of visuals I want to kind of display as a director.
Well, whatever you do, especially with a sequel, you got to make sure Jason comes back, because his physicality and what he brings to Benny is just so fun to watch, especially where he's kind of dancing, almost like an homage to Ray Bolger in The Wizard of Oz, in the warehouse. He's got like a little dance that he almost does. And it reminded me of Ray Bolger in The Wizard of Oz. So Jason has to come back.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he'll definitely be back for sure. He did a great job at playing Benny.
I can't thank you enough for taking time to talk to me today about Diced Reloaded. I hope you can get to work quickly on a sequel, so that we can chat again in the future.
Yeah, of course. I'm definitely planning on doing that. So yeah, it was a pleasure talking to you as well.
Oh, thank you so much, Jeremy, and you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks. Bye-bye. And that was Jeremy Rudd talking about Diced Reloaded, which is now available to rent or purchase on VOD. And folks, when you see the film, please watch through to the bitter end. There is a hilarious post-credit scene that sets up beautifully for a sequel, which I hope we're going to see from Jeremy in the not-too-distant future. Now we're going to shift gears with the wonderful director, writer, producer, Chuck Russell. I have long admired Chuck's work, going back to Nightmare on Elm Street 3. He was writer-director. And since then, The Scorpion King, Dreamscape, The Mask, a shift into action with one of my all-time favorites, Eraser, with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and most recently, Paradise City. But now, Chuck is going back to his roots, shall we say, with WITCHBOARD. Now, WITCHBOARD may sound familiar to many of you. It was a terrific franchise back in the late 80s to mid-90s. But now it's time for a new generation and a reboot and reimagination. And Chuck Russell is just the filmmaker for the job. Resurrecting the 80s horror classic with a chilling new vision, WITCHBOARD takes place in present-day New Orleans, where a cursed artifact unleashes a vengeful witch. Aren't they all? Drawing a young couple into a deadly spiral of possession, temptation, and occult terror. Directed by Chuck, co-written by Chuck and Greg McKay, Witchboard stars Madison Eisman, an amazing, amazing performance. Aaron Dominguez, Melanie Johnson, Charlie Tahan, with Antonia Desplat and one of my favorites, Jamie Campbell Bower, who I first really took note of in the TV series Camelot, where he played King Arthur, and then in The Mortal Instruments, City of Bones. I have been a big fan of his ever since, including his work in Kevin Costner's Horizon: An American Saga. Trust me when I say that Jamie has a delicious, somewhat macabre turn now in Witchboard. And I just can't get enough of his performance here. Now, as you're about to hear in my conversation with Chuck, it's obvious. Speaking with him is a pure joy. With no holds barred, we dug into all things witchy, notably the visual richness and historical accuracy of the film. Yes, folks, Chuck is very anal about historical accuracy, as am I, and that is quite evident in Witchboard. This was inspired to incorporate the historical significance of pendulum boards, or witchboards as they became known, into the story after researching their origins and uses. Chuck noted that the pendulum boards actually predate Ouija boards and were prevalent as far back as ancient Egypt, used for spell casting and fortune telling. Hey, you get history lessons from me too, what can I tell you? He found it fascinating that these boards, which include astrological signs and symbols, were outlawed by the French Pope in the 1700s, with women being burned at the stake for possessing them. This direct historical connection to the occult and their transformation into Ouija boards intrigued Chuck. So he personally designed the film's pendulum board to reflect both positive and negative balances, aiming for a nuanced portrayal rather than a purely demonic one. And you're going to love hearing Chuck discuss the witch facts of history and why they're so important to this new 21st century witchboard universe. And you can hear his excitement when he talks about creating the witchboard in the film himself. Now, diving into casting and performances, there's plenty of praise to go around, particularly for Jamie Campbell Bower and Madison Eisman, with Chuck noting their passion for their roles. It's not often that a lot of film directors will pick up on that and specifically comment about an actor's passion in their performance. But Chuck is always very generous about that when he talks about his actors in his films. Now, one of the most interesting story aspects of Witchboard, which Chuck explains very well, is integrating a 1700s storyline with the present, and then the seamless editing process by his team of Alex Marquez, Joe Plenis, and Emily Valley. Many filmmakers out there are probably going to find Chuck's thoughts on the flexibility of digital editing compared to film and the seamless integration of visual effects of great interest to them. So we got a lot of interesting things happening in this conversation. And we really go into and hit hard the use of color and texture, particularly with the intricate design of the pendulum board and the positive negative forces in the various avatars. And when it comes to color and vibrancy, Chuck went to a fave cinematographer of mine, Yaron Levy. And he gives us details on the design of the visual grammar. But let's not forget the work of production designer Camille Parent. It's thanks to Yaron and Camille that we are treated to a balance of glamour and darkness, as Chuck calls it, to create an immersive cinematic experience. As you'll hear Chuck specifically mention, it was his intention to make a film sumptuous and tempting, while also highlighting the dangers and allure of magic. He wanted to create, quote, a glamorous world, but the trick was to make that world terrifying, drawing viewers in with its beauty and then unsettling them with its darker elements. The rich colors, intricate set and production design, and dynamic lighting such as candlelight and vivid color cues reinforce this duality throughout the film. And Chuck goes into great detail discussing the cinematic approach for both the allure and the threat presented. Of course, what would an interview of mine on a film like Witchboard be without talking about score? And this one is just fabulous, courtesy of composer Sam Ewing. A contemporary score influenced by classical music. Plus, Chuck and Sam fought for and won the use of a full orchestral score for the film. It's getting rarer where you have a full orchestra performing your scores. You might have a few of this, a few of that. It might be done electronically. But a full orchestra to do a score, unless it's, a 250 million, 300 million Marvel film or something along of that ilk, it's really tricky to accomplish that. But they did. And it adds another level of richness as far as I'm concerned. So take a listen to this exclusive interview with director, co-writer, and Witchboard designer Chuck Russell as he talks about the new 21st century Witchboard. Hey, Chuck!
Hi.
I am so happy to be speaking with you about this little gem Witchboard.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
I mean, I'm such an admirer of your work anyway. It's like Eraser is still one of my go-to guilty pleasure films.
Thank you. It was a guilty pleasure making it.
And Paradise City. I love Paradise City. Eraser is one of my, in the middle of the night, I can't sleep, I will go to that because it's so fun. And then I really can't sleep because I'm wide awake.
Thanks. That was an amazing film to make back in the day with Arnold.
It really just action-packed and intelligent and fun. And
wasn't Vanessa Williams was cool in it with Arnold. That was a great
I really thought we would see her moving into more of an action bent because she was so good.
She was great.
I really thought, I was so impressed by her action, by her physicality, that we would see her stepping into more action-oriented roles, and we didn't. I'm disappointed by that in her.
Don't be hard on her. Hollywood is a crazy place. We never know what's going to happen next.
I know. Well, now what has happened is you have delivered a visual feast. This sumptuous richness set against bloody horror. Witchboard is glorious. It is.
Wow, thank you.
I was so visually stimulated watching this. Your use of color and texture. And the work of Camille as your production designer, with dealing with Baptiste Library and Home, and then the Creole King's Restaurant. Your cinematographer comes into play, Yaron, who's wonderful.
It's a great looking picture. Our intention here was to give the international audiences a great cinematic experience. As an independent film, that's rare. So I used all my skills from my studio movies to make this big and fun and scary as hell. That was the plan.
Well, you certainly succeeded, and it truly is. It is beautiful to look at. It's like I wanted to eat all of that food that was plated. You've got so much food design happening here, Chuck. It's gorgeous. Every frame is gorgeous. So
thank you for noticing this. We really put our hearts into it, all of us. And I see magic is a temptation.
Yes.
Right? The Wicca, there's a good side to it, and there's possibly a bad side to it. But I wanted to make the whole movie sumptuous and tempting to show how our characters got drawn into this world. And
that's exactly what you do. Your metaphor, your overall metaphor, and then specific metaphors are very strong. And a lot of it, I think, is going to be subconsciously absorbed by the audience. But how do you even start and approach this? Because a tricky element of this film is the fact that you're going back and forth in time. And you're not changing your visual tonal bandwidth. You're not going into a sepia, blah. No, it's vibrant and alive in the present as the past.
I thank you for that observation. I don't like films with flashbacks, actually. So none of these are flashbacks. There's a parallel storyline happening in the 1700s that our cast, that Madison Eisman's character, is affecting the outcome also in the 1700s. So as a filmmaker, that was the excitement and the challenge for me of choosing this particular story.
It's seamless as we transition. How do you even start breaking this down? You've got this script, developing it. What were your primary considerations in working on the script with Greg? And then how do you even start to break this down from a visual standpoint?
I can't stop myself. So the whole point of returning to horror is it can be the most visually creative genre. I mean, in other words, I can let my imagination fly, particularly when I have a device like the WITCHBOARD, which in our story is a one-off. It's a lot like The Mask. In The Mask, there's one historical prop that is imbued with magical powers if you know how to access it, and you better beware if you do. So that was the fun in this piece. I had noticed pendulum boards years ago, and I couldn't figure out why they hadn't been used in the genre. They predated Ouija boards. They were more prevalent. They were all the way back to ancient Egypt. They were used for spell casting and for telling the future, trying to affect your fate. And it isn't just letters, it's astrological signs and symbols.
Yeah.
And when I designed that board, every symbol has a deep meaning and can be interpreted like tarot cards for a positive or negative meaning. That is fascinating to me. And to tell a story with that board stimulating the action was irresistible, really.
And I love what you did, because with the intricacy and the detail of the WITCHBOARD itself, of the pendulum board, the color that you use there for each of these little iconic avatars, shall we say, that translates when the pendulum lands on something, the color, it comes to life. We might have the vibrant, vivid green, and then we'll see green elsewhere really pop in the room. Same thing with reds. You really use color so well, pulling it from the WITCHBOARD into the surroundings that we're in the moment, be it the restaurant, be it in the bedroom, be it candles suddenly just flashing upward when the pendulum starts moving. It's gorgeous the way you did that.
Thank you for noticing. Look, these are almost subliminal things. I like to create a glamorous world, and the trick is to make that world terrifying. So the draw and the glamour of Wicca, of witchcraft, and even in Madison's character's backstory with the drug issue, I find the obsession with drugs very much a metaphor for an obsession with magic.
Yes.
They're both a dangerous path. So I'm not recommending pendulum boards or Ouija boards to anybody. In fact, it's a cautionary tale.
What were your conversations with Yaron like to develop your visual grammar? Because you do have very specific visual grammar here. I love how you use ECUs and you use them judiciously. Can you talk to me about what your considerations were with him for how you wanted to shoot this?
As I said, I wanted to make it glamorous, but to have a very, very dark side. And that's an interesting balance. I've done it before, all the way back to when I started my career in horror with Nightmare on Elm Street 3 and The Blob. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to do everything I hadn't done yet in the genre. So it's why it's a very rich film. It's a great linear storyline, but it's rich with ideas regarding the power of the supernatural and how we can envision it.
Yeah.
So number one with Yaron, I do a lot of sketch work when I'm writing, was to kind of go through that and to talk about, the details of getting these greens and golds and reds that really go back to medieval paintings, actually, in the film, without making it sugar-coated, to create a convincing and a dark world as well. But thank you for noticing that. I don't get those comments a lot, so maybe you're a filmmaker yourself.
And the lighting is spectacular. The lighting throughout is spectacularly done, be it in the 1700s or be it in present day. The lighting is just beautiful, and the way you use candlelight, the way Yaron uses candlelight as an explosive, moment, is just stunning. Absolutely stunning. Because as we
Thank
all
you.
know, everybody looks much better in candlelight and or moonlight. So he really follows through there. Now, how difficult was it casting this film? Madison just blew me away. But then you also bring in a favorite actor of mine who I don't see often enough, Jamie Campbell Bower as Alexander Baptiste. That was a joy for me to see him in this role.
Jamie was our first piece of casting. I'd seen him. Well, I saw him in Stranger Things, and I go, okay, that's got to be Baptiste. And I tend to do final polishes on the script when I know who I've got. So Jamie and I hit it off really well. He understood what we were doing with the character, and he relished it. And frankly, he's more versed in the occult, which only means hidden mystery, honestly. He has been fascinated with that on his own as well. So it was like having a real occult expert playing an occult expert. But Jamie's a real, I think, going to be an important rising star. He's in the tradition of great English actors, and he's a real artist. He's quite serious about his craft. So of all my cast, we started with him as number one, and Madison, really at the same time, she was passionate about the role. So she was submitting a tape of herself in a scene right from the beginning, and I'm like, oh my God, that is Emily. And I was quite delighted when I realized the other work I'd seen her in, and her talent is incredible.
It really is. And you've got a great chemistry happening there with Aaron Dominguez as Christian, and also you throw Mel Johnson in there as Brooke. So you have this great little, semi-romantic triumvirate there.
It's a reference to the romantic triangle in the original, which was two guys jealous over one girl. And I thought, well, let's flip it, and have a relationship for Aaron's character with both women and about to marry Emily, which can be a real conflict in the middle of a WITCHBOARD drama.
It sure can. Now, how challenging was the editing process on this one, Chuck? You're linear, but you're going between... You got a lot of action happening. You have some visual effects happening. You've got the 1700s. You've got present day. How challenging was this edit to bring this all together?
Listen, I mean, these are challenging things, but it's why I make movies. I love this stuff. So I really hadn't tried integrating a period story directly with the contemporary story, and I was very excited about it. So yeah, there was some experimentation. This was an independent film. I got to put it on my own schedule as a producer and director, and I relished the opportunity. So look, it's a long process with a lot of tinkering, but we had great editors and the time to do a good job.
How? Because I know
the digital tricks now are amazing. What you can do, because my career spans back to film.
Yes.
And having fun moving into digital. So a lot of the things you're seeing in the color and in the editing, of course, there's great flexibility with the whole digital process that we didn't used to have.
I'm curious, because you've got 3 editors happening on this one. Were they working in tandem, or were you passing this off for director's cut version 1, version 2? How did that work for you with multiple editors?
Let me pause for one moment, may I?
Sure.
Hold on, are we live? I don't
know. No, we're not. I'm pre-recording this.
All right, I'll tell you why. Because I want to give credit where it's due, since you asked. Can we come back to this question while my phone boots up?
Of course. Not a problem at all. So,
thank you.
While your phone is waiting to cooperate with you, I want to ask. Yeah, you might need a little witchcraft there. You might need your own witchboard to summon it.
I need it.
I'll tell you. I could use one. I want to ask you about Sam Ewing's score.
Oh my gosh, isn't Sam talented? He's amazing.
I love the score here. I love it. It fits the 1700s. It fits present day. Nothing overpowers you. And it has even kind of a mystical kind of quality to it where it needs it. How did you find Sam, and what were you looking for musically?
The trick with Sam, I wanted a big score, but I wanted it to be contemporary. but influence. This was actually the harder challenge with all the time zones in the story, because I wanted influenced by classical music, because Jamie's character kind of lives in the 1700s in his head. He's an expert in the period. He decorates his home that way in the story, and then we transition to the 1700s. So we used some classical music, and Sam was able to integrate it with a big, exciting horror score, really. I wanted to do a full orchestral score, which we did. We used very little. People try to do a lot of their orchestral purely digital now, but we used a wonderful orchestra out of Europe, and Sam just did an amazing job, and we worked very closely in post. So I think he's another real rising star. And he also did Paradise City for me, if you like that.
Yes. I know that's because you had worked with him before on Paradise City. But this score, I just fell in love with it. It is really remarkable. It's Sam's best work, so I'm not exaggerating. I mean, that score is as good as anything I've had on films like Scorpion King and The Mask. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And what I appreciate with what Sam did is, yes, you have a big score, but it's also, it's subtle where it needs to be, but it's not your traditional tropey horror score.
No, what's happening in horror now is very interesting. Some of the kind of minimalist horror, where it's really just depression is part of the fear. In these stories, the soundtracks have become almost sound effects tracks. Yeah. With vacuumous outer space noises, and it creates fear in the audience for sure. But I actually wanted a more immersive, entertaining experience for the audience. There's thrills and chills along with scares. And for me, that requires a big orchestra. And it's a unique score. I'm glad you noticed.
I think it's wonderful. Now, has our phone booted up yet? Is it cooperating on editors?
Yes. Alex Marquez was my lead editor, and he's wonderful, along with our Canadian editors and Joe Plenis. So we had 3 editors. Alex was the lead, and it was an amazing experience because I was cutting here in L.A. and in Montreal. So we shot the film primarily in Montreal and, of course, New Orleans.
Wow, because the editing is so seamless. It is very smooth, and where it needs to be in some of the really heightened magical scenes, it's rapier, and we don't see things coming, such as flaming birds out of fireplaces.
No, not too many spoilers, but yeah, that scene, it's simply one of the scenes I'm proudest of. I believe in setting things up, so your twists and turns in the story, it's a game with the audience. I like to give them a clue. Yeah. And there is dialogue. There is dialogue about that before that happens. But let's let the audiences discover that one.
You have a lot of visual cues, too, that people that know anything, if they ever watched Buffy the Vampire Slayer, 10 years of that or whatever, they'll pick up on some of the visual clues that get tied to Wicca and other magical and occult elements.
I think one of the reasons, if you find the film resonant and audiences seem to, is that as wild as the movie is, everything about witches is historically accurate, including the small town in France where there was a very mysterious massacre, including what pendulum boards are themselves. The French Pope in the 1700s outlawed them, and they were burning women at the stake who they found having pendulum boards. So the pendulum boards were forbidden, and thus Ouija boards evolved with the planchette instead of a pendulum years later. So there is a direct line into the Ouija board world. Anyway, you'll see what we do with our projections of how the Wicca may work. But the facts are true, and even including a cat as a familiar to the witch. I'm really enjoying this one. Let's go longer.
Oh, Chuck, I'll talk to you as long as you want. As long as you won't let us. Did you find that witch board, that pendulum board, or did Camille make that, or one of your other artisans?
Honestly, I personally designed it. Camille was very patient with me because I know about it. I did the research. I wanted a board that was had a positive and a negative balance. I didn't want a pentagram board where it's just demonic.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a very dangerous board. It's some of the evils are interpreted, but every one of those symbols means something. And if we carry on with this series, more and more of that will be revealed.
Talk to me about carrying on with this series, Chuck. I want more. I'm ready.
It's already a Witchboard universe. I mean, really,
Yeah.
There's three films from the 80s, and then we kind of reinvented it with new characters in the Pendulum Board. But there's plenty of room for expansion. But I believe let's entertain this generation of audiences first and see how they respond.
Oh my God. I think they're going to love it because I have seen the originals when they first came out. So I was aware of the Witchboard universe and I like it. And because I love the occult and magic and whatnot. But what you've done here, though, this is so much richer and vibrant. It comes to life on the screen and you cannot look away.
Thank you. Look, we honored the original,
Yeah.
but we're giving the audiences something that they've never seen before. I wouldn't have started if I didn't feel that way, where we could honor what was resonant and why the originals are part of pop culture, and just blow it up and take it further.
Well, you have certainly done that, and I assure you that this will now become another one of my middle-of-the-night guilty pleasure viewings.
Well, great.
I'll watch Arnold first, and then I'll watch Witches. You know, what the heck? They go together.
We'd be honored, and I secretly hope people that really practice Wicca will get a kick out of this, because we show the good side of Wicca as well.
And as you mentioned, yeah, there aren't too many films or anything that has ever really shown the good side of Wicca. We saw it with Charmed. We saw it with Buffy the Vampire Slayer until Willow turned wicked. Wicked Wicca. But yeah, we don't see the good side that often. We're more familiar with the bad. So
not to mislead the audiences, this is not for kids.
Oh,
it's terrifying, but I don't think I can dramatize the dark without showing a little light.
That's the only way to do it. You've got to have two sides of the coin. You have to have good to see the evil and evil to see the good.
Agree.
And you give us that and more. Chuck, I love this film. This is so wonderful. I hope we get to chat again in the future.
Really good questions. Thank you. You're very insightful. It was a wonderful, fun interview for me.
Oh, I'm so glad. Well, you go have a wonderful rest of your day. And that was Chuck Russell talking about Witchboard. And yes, you don't even need to ask, and you probably just heard Chuck say it, his hope for this film is that it is the launch of more Witchboard films and expanding the universe, the Witchboard universe. Witchboard opened on Friday and is now in theaters in wide release. Trust me when I say you want to see this one on the big screen. It is glorious, absolutely glorious. So, that is all the time we have today, but don't miss next week when director David Mackenzie, the man behind Hell or High Water and a few other little gems out there, David talks about his new film, the edge of your seat thriller Relay. Another really good film you don't want to miss. And that opens this coming Friday on the 22nd. So you'll have next weekend, you can see the film and then hear next Monday what David has to say about it. But until then, I'm Debbie Elias. This is Behind the Lens.